We've both done our 23-man squads as opposed to 48-man squads.
Which it will be.
In and around that. So this is for Turkey in March. Let's go goalkeepers.
My three.
Yeah.
Darren Randolph and Rob Elliott are our two first choice goalkeepers. I've thrown Kieran O'Hara, the Irish under-21 keeper. He's with Manchester United in there. Clearly he's not playing first team football, but he is playing with the United under-23s. And I look around and think Kieran Westwood is 33 right now. O'Neill clearly doesn't fancy him. So why not have your third choice keeper as somebody who you can actually use to give him a bit of experience around the camp? All right, he's probably not going to play a huge amount, but
when does a third choice goalkeeper play?
Exactly. And maybe if there is an injury to Darren Randolph, you can always call up Kieran Westwood at that stage if you don't feel O'Hara's experienced enough to throw him into a qualifier, which clearly he's not right now. But I think he's the type of, and there's not a huge amount of them, but he's one of the ones in the under-21s you could look at and think, let's get him in. And he's already been in as well. Let's get him in around all the time, see what he can learn off Randolph and Elliott.
I've gone Randolph, Elliott and Westwood purely because Elliott in particular, first team opportunities not cemented. Darren now, since he's gone to Middlesbrough, is the undisputed number one. Last year it was obviously a bit of a race between him and Adrian. And Kieran Westwood, I know he's injured at the moment, but I've done this squad as in everybody's available, everybody's fit. He's probably still the best or in the top three goalkeepers in the Championship. So in terms of consistency, reliability, but I would be well up for that in terms of Kieran O'Hara coming into we see him play that Norwegian game, didn't we, out in Tallaght only a few months ago, and he's got a nice commanding presence, very good with his feet, so he is certainly prospect-wise right up there. And I'm big on the integration of the players coming in, sampling what the environment is like for the senior team, and it just whets their appetite.
It's something Martin O'Neill hasn't done a huge amount of. Like Kieran O'Hara was one of the exceptions, and I think it was because he was probably a little bit short on numbers during one of the camps. But one of the questions and the criticism of O'Neill is like the lack of League of Ireland players, and you often hear there should almost be a quota system where he has to bring in 3 or 4 League of Ireland players to train. You've been in those camps. Does it make a difference if suddenly you have 3 or 4 guys who maybe aren't quite used to that level of training?
Makes a massive difference, really does, in terms of the quality of training can fall down. I'll even go back to when I was coaching. So you would try and manipulate, if you were doing 2 types of passing drills, you would put the better passers together because the tempo of the session goes up. In keep ball sessions, in possession balls, little small sided games, if you have those 2-3 players that aren't of the level, you can get away with it with a younger player, maybe 1 or 2, but if there's a few in the squad, so I know there's been a bit of a push for that. I think in general the jump from League of Ireland to international football is far too great. The only player that I would have put into the Ireland squad while playing League of Ireland in the last few seasons would be Sean Maguire, in that purple patch that he had before he went to Preston. Seen him play, I think it was the second last game against Bray Wanderers. He was on a different planet to everybody else. So I think if you pick Sean Maguire, put him into the training session with the Ireland team, there wouldn't be an issue. But in the main, I think the jump is just too big.
Yeah, that is the side of it we never actually look at. When we talk about Daryl Horgan, Richie Towell back in the day, it's almost on the assumption they can settle into the game, whereas we never really think about what happens in the week beforehand and how they fit into those training sessions.
Defenders. So I've gone, again, everybody fit, everybody available. I've actually gone for 7 defenders. So I've gone Seamus Coleman, Shane Duffy, Kieran Clark. I've gone Declan Rice, but obviously he can play centre midfield as well. Kevin Long, Stephen Ward, and Matt Doherty. Matt Doherty, again, versatility. So I've gone for 3 full-backs as opposed to 4. So Cyrus Christie doesn't make my squad.
I have gone for 7 defenders. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of overlap, such as the lack of options facing Martin O'Neill. So I also have Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty will be my 2 right wing backs, as I would probably see it now. Stephen Ward and Greg Cunningham. I think Greg Cunningham's been around for so long, he definitely deserves
he's on my standby
a chance
list
to get fully back in. And I've just gone with the 3 centre-backs, Shane Duffy, Declan Rice, Kieran Clark. Now, I would like to see Ireland play with a back 3, so perhaps you do need that
extra
other option of Kevin Long. He's not playing a huge amount of football right now. Again, if there was a 24-man squad, he'd probably be the next one in. But I do think we need to start playing to our strengths, as we'll see. We have.
Do you think our strengths are at three at the back?
I think you want to find a way of playing Shane Duffy, Declan Rice, Kieran Clark. And Declan Rice was over at the Spurs West Ham game where he kept Harry Kane pretty quiet. Kenny Cunningham was with him with the under-19s. Kenny was saying, don't see him as a central midfielder. I know he's played in that role and saw him at Old Trafford at the start of the season come on and play half an hour as a holding midfielder, but he's very much a centre back. You want him facing the play, that's his role, that's where we want to play him all the time. And as part of a back three, you also maybe can ease him in a bit. He's
a Rolls Royce, there's no doubt about it. I know some people at West Ham as well, they cannot speak highly about this lad's temperament. Obviously within the FAI his reputation is through the roof. I would be amazed if he does not get his first cap in March against Turkey. Absolutely amazed. And you're right, how do you get them into that? Because Kieran Clark and Duffy have formed a really good partnership. He's still very, very young. Very, very young.
I think we forget how young he is when you just look at the amount of other teenagers who are playing in the Premier League. He's the youngest player to start in the Premier League this season, and most of the other 18-year-olds who played in the Premier League, I think he's 19, possibly he's certainly 19 this week, but of the other 18-year-olds, they're getting 3-4 minutes here. And also he's managed to survive the change in
managerial change, which is huge. More impressive, I would probably stick to a back
Neither of
four.
us have Cyrus Christie, do we?
No, I haven't got Cyrus Christie. You don't. No. I went purely on the versatility of, do you need, you need versatility within a squad. He certainly provides that. Declan Rice could obviously play midfield if needs be, but no, I've gone for Matt Doherty, and it's not just because he's on the show today either. Moving on to our midfielders. Okay, you bang away.
Alright, I've gone with a lot of the regulars: James McCarthy, Robbie Brady, Stephen Ireland back, Harry Arter, Liam Kelly, who's been around the squad.
Yeah, I've got Liam Kelly.
Jeff Hendrick, Callum O'Dowda, Ewan O'Kane, Conor Hourihan. Probably the obvious one I left out was David Myler.
I've left Myler out. I think when everybody's fit, and obviously we should touch on as well maybe the retirees that we maybe foresee: John O'Shea, Glenn Whelan, magnificent servants, both of them obviously.
John Walters.
I've persuaded John Walters to come in my squad.
He's injured.
Because needs be.
Wes is a definite possibility, even with that magnificence at Stamford Bridge last night.
Yeah, I think, well, maybe the fact that Wes came into the equation so late in his career maybe might just see him go one more campaign, and he's the type of player that can play 15, 20 minutes.
Well, that's exactly,
possibly.
And also, I guess when we're looking at these retarees age-wise, so I think Wes would be 38. I was actually looking at
by the time
I was looking at it last night to see would he be the oldest player ever to play at the Euros. I think like Luther Matthäus, there's a couple of them slightly older, but he'd be right up there.
Yeah, well, he looks after himself, and in terms of runs on the clock, he has come into it that little bit later. So,
who have you got?
Right, I tell you what I haven't got Stephen Ireland.
What? Did you not watch him on Monday night? Old Trafford, running the show?
I did watch him, yeah. I did watch him, and look, what I should say first and foremost is, I've read a lot on his road to recovery, the sacrifice that he's made. He was over in Qatar supposed to be for, I think it was 2-3 weeks. That turned into 3 months. He literally became a recluse in terms of getting back. So his dedication to get back from this injury has been very, very impressive. And look, I'll be the first to hold my hands up in terms of when he decided to have that little bit of a period out of the Ireland team that turned into an extended period. I was over the moon. Because
you
playing
got more game
position.
time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think anybody watching will be surprised that you don't like ball-playing midfielders in the middle of the Irish midfield.
That's very, very harsh. Now I'm on this side of the fence. We weren't allowed play. So no, look, I think, if it's how much that would be a popular decision if it did pan out. He's very different to what we have, because the way I would set up our midfield would be one holding midfielder, and that would be James McCarthy for me. And then I would have 2 in advance of that. Hendrick, Arthur, Brady, which depending on where you want to go with that. If you want to play with 2 and then a 1 in front, a more traditional type number 10 player, if Wes isn't in the squad, if he retires, I think Stephen Ireland is probably the only one that is suited to that. But obviously he has to stay fit. Obviously the management team need to see that, and they need to see his kind of intentions. But he's just got back fit at club level. I'm sure his focus is.
But it was his first start in 2.5 years.
Know,
but there was enough, and he missed a couple of chances. But there's even just the way when the ball arrives in the centre circle, he's willing to play those quick 1-2s. Very like Wes.
He's a very bright player.
So maybe we get to that stage where it is Stephen Ireland playing 70 minutes, Wes playing 20 minutes.
Yeah. The other two that maybe I've gone with Aidan O'Brien from Millwall, and I think he's had a really, really good season. He's bright, sharp, a little bit different. I haven't gone for many wingers in my squad, because I think James McLean, Robbie Brady kind of have those down. They're very, very reliable in terms of the performance. Liam Kelly is another one who is on both of our squads.
He's been in and around the squad. Like, he's not the biggest player, but he's playing week in, week out with Reading. Like, is he ready for that sort of step up?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's 22, 23 now, so he's not actually that young. He was very close to getting pied off by Reading under Brian McDermott because he very simply didn't suit the style. Jaap Stam was his saving grace. So he has to play in a particular style. But I've often said this about when players come from club football into the Ireland setup. You know, we would have had in my round players that would have wanted to play too much, and it just didn't suit the style that Trapattoni had at that time. And it's similar-ish to Martin. Like, when you come in, you have to make an impact in the way he wants. So if that's Liam Kelly playing little silly balls around his 18-yard box, Martin's not particularly going to like that. So if he does get the opportunity, which I think he might in the coming months, he needs to nail it.
So does he need to be at his best? Does Liam Kelly need James McCarthy and Harry Arthur either side of him?
Yeah, he plays one of the two central mid positions with James McCarthy or a holder behind him.
Right. He's
licensed to get forward, licensed to get in those little pockets. He's a very, very bright player. There's a couple of others who I should mention. Horan's not in mine. Alan Judge, I would love to get back fit.
If he gets back.
Yeah, love to get back playing. And the other one I want to give a little mention is Alan Brown at Preston. I've seen them 2 or 3 times this season. Spoke to Alex Neil about him. Very, very effective. Not particularly easy on the eye. So Liam Kelly for me is very easy on the eye in the way they play. Preston, they aren't a long ball team. It's been evolved since Simon Grayson left. But Alan Brown is actually playing as an advanced midfielder, and he affects the game by running in beyond, knocking the opposition out of their stride. He's strong. He's playing full of confidence, and he certainly should be in and around the squad, in my opinion, on current form.
You're probably a good example of this. So somebody like that, and part of Martin O'Neill maybe is thinking 2.5 years' time, who are the players who are still going to be playing, and we like it's impossible to guess. How important is it to actually have players who are full of confidence, and maybe giving Alan Brown 2 or 3 starts over the next 6 months actually takes his career to a whole new level?
Yeah, totally agree with you.
How much of that did you find?
Like you wouldn't believe. Him, Matt Doherty, players on the periphery, Aidan O'Brien, players on the periphery of it now see this period in our chapter going forward as a huge opportunity. And if they don't, there's something wrong with them. So club level, on that particular day when Roy Keane or Steve Guppy or Martin goes to watch the game, you have to shine. If I was them and I knew then what I know now, I would be getting my club manager to phone the representatives and just push my case.
Come watch me.
Come watch me, yeah. If you have that relationship,
and you need that sort of pressure on you as well, because I guess, listen, there's going to be huge pressure. We know what it means to them when they're lining out, whether it's Turkey or whether they're playing in a qualifier. If you can't do it, just knowing that Steve Guppy and Roy Keane are watching you down in the Championship, you're not going to be able to do it for Ireland.
Exactly. So nail that, but when you get the opportunity, you obviously have to take it.
Have you any strikers?
Yeah, well, look, I've persuaded John Walters and Darryl Murphy to give me another campaign.
Wow. What's the reason of John O'Shea and at centre back?
Yeah, look, I think we've got options there, whereas I think top end of the pitch we're still struggling. Shane Long, Hogan, Shawnee Maguire, nailed on for me. Let's go forward with them. Let's give them every opportunity, and just, you know, for that different type, if you need to go with a 2, 20, 30 minutes, certainly not as starters at this stage of their career, but Walters and Murphy.
I didn't have Walters and Murphy. I think, again, and you'll know better, there's a good chance they may hang around because they love playing for the country, particularly with Darryl Murphy. It's taken them so long. In fact, for both of them, it's taken them so long to get involved that if they're still playing club football, this is probably the highlight for them. Like, you're hearing John Walters before this injury today, the link with a move to Sunderland. Like, going off on the international break is going to be the highlight of his every 2 or 3 months. So if John Walters wants to play, he's in my squad every time. Like, I have James McLean down as one of the strikers. My four would be Long, McLean, Hogan, Maguire. Outside of that, there's nobody. Like, I know Kevin is a big fan of Rhys Gregor-Cox with the under-21s, and even though he hasn't had a real chance with QPR over the last couple of years, felt that, yeah, you know, I think if he hangs in there, maybe he might get his chance. He's moved to Woking over the last 10 days or so, so he's going to have to start right at the beginning.
Yeah, but not that that's okay, but we've a lot of prodigious talent at 16s, 17s, 19s level within the FAI. But the jump to get to first team level and play consistently is ginormous. It really is. So those players aren't ready, certainly for our senior team. A lot of them aren't ready for the 21s. We just need patience with them. But we can only do so much in terms of the FAI fan. They need the right type of guidance at club level to go to the right club, to bounce on, and then hopefully be available to us in the coming years, because there's certainly right now real talent at underage level, but I keep saying it's just a huge jump to get playing regularly.
They probably need, and maybe this already happens, like, you look at somebody like Robbie Brady, he would be such a good example. Maybe now while he's injured he can do this, go in with the under-21s and say, listen, I was at Manchester United, my life was planned out in front of me, I was going to be the big superstar, and it didn't happen for me at United. I had to go back, I had to start again. And there's probably a lot of guys, like we hear all the time, you look at the under-21s, there are players at Liverpool, there's quite a few players at Liverpool in the under-21s that I just think of someone like Conor Masterson, who I think is still with the 19s, but is playing week in, week out with the Liverpool under-23s, middle of midfield. Like, it's going to be very difficult for him to break into that Liverpool midfield, even if Jurgen Klopp does like him, gets him into training squads. So his next step is the most important one, as to what club he goes to and what sort of attitude he has when he goes to that club. So,
but there's different routes to get there, and you know, you step back to go forward. One player now, which we're going to chat to in a moment or so, Matt Doherty, League of Ireland route. There's so many routes to get to where you need to go. The key ingredient is perseverance and having that ability to kick on and kick on.